or whatever. Hey. Hey, kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. Hello, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing? Oh, intro, right? Hey y'all, so on here we do cash stuff and budgeting, paying off our debt and mind our business, and not necessarily in them four orders, child. So if that is something that you are interested in, hopefully go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because what we love to talk about the money, the coins, and getting our business together. Okay, so as you guys can see, today we are reading the 48 laws of power, and we are reading chapter 3. So if you have not watched chapter 1 and 2, baby, it's there if you go on my channel under the live. But without further ado, y'all, because we here for a good time and a long time, let's get into the video. Let's get into the reading. And I'm using my Prop 50 as my bookmarker, y'all, because why not? Why not? So, yeah, y'all. So, as you guys know, last week, them come for your girl. Them come and them try to take us out last week, but this week, they're stuttering. But this week, we're gonna do so much better, so much better. Y'all, I almost didn't come on Sunday reads because the way, your girl was lazy in today. The rain is falling outside, and I was just like, child, anybody got time for this? But I do got time for this, because this is a promise I made to myself, and so we both gonna be reading together, okay? So, without further ado, we're gonna start reading chapter 3 of the 48 Laws of Power. Now, this one, right? It said the law number 3 is conceal your intention. It sounds very suspicious. All of them laws here sound very suspicious. But you know what? We are going to do it. So, here we go. So, part 1, use decoyed objects of desire and red herrings to throw people off the scent. What that mean, let us find out. If at any point in the deception you practice, people have the slightest suspicion as to your intentions, all is lost. Do not give them the chance to sense what you are up to. Throw them off the scent by dragging red herrings across the path. What does that even mean? Use false sincerity, send ambiguous signals, set up misleading objects of desire. Unable to distinguish the genuine from the false, they cannot pick out your real goal. Whoa. So they telling you the law? Let us continue, y'all. Transgression of the law. Over several weeks, Neon Delenclos, the most infamous courtesan of 17th century France, listened patiently as the Marquis de Seven, all right, because we don't know, explained the struggles in pursuing a beautiful but difficult young countess. Ninan was 62 at the time and more than experienced in matters of love. The Marquis was a lad of 22, handsome, dashing, and hopelessly inexperienced in romance. At first, Ninan was amused to hear the Marquis talk about his mistakes, but finally, she had had enough. Wait, a woman that? Our woman, okay. Unable to bear ineptitude in any realm, least of all in seducing a woman, she decided to take the young man under her wing. First, he had to understand that this was war, and that the beautiful countess was a citadel to which he had to lay siege as carefully as any general. Every step had to be planned and executed with the utmost attention to detail and nuance. Instructing the Marquis to start over, Ninan told him to approach the countess with a bit of distance and air of nonchalance. The next time the two were alone together, she said, he would confide in the countess as with a friend, but not a potential lover. Oh, this is spicy. This was the truth of her scent. The countess was no longer to take his interest in her for granted. Perhaps was only interested in friendship. Ninan planned ahead. Once the countess was confused, it would be time to make her jealous. At the next encounter at a major fete in Paris, the Marquis would show up with a beautiful young woman and say, all right, see, all of the girlies them out there, pay attention, because I'm paying attention. This beautiful young woman had equally beautiful friends, so that whenever the countess would now see the Marquis, he would be surrounded by the most beautiful, stunning young women in Paris. Not only would it make the countess be seething with jealousy, She would come to see the Marquis as someone who was desired by others. It was hard for Ninan to make the Marquis understand, but she patiently explained that a woman who is interested in a man wants to see that other women are interested in him too. Is not a lie, never one. Not only does that give him instant value, it makes it all the more satisfying to snatch him from their clutches. Snatch a gal, man. Once the Countess was jealous but intrigued, it would be time to beguile her. On Ninan's instructions, the Marquis would fail to show up at the affair where the Countess expected to see him. Then suddenly, he would appear at salons he had never frequented before. But the Countess, right, the Countess attended often. She would be unable to predict his moves. All of this would push her into the state of emotional confusion that is a prerequisite for successful seduction. When them say him did right from the art of the art of seduction, me know now what they mean. Me getting it. All right. These moves were executed and took several weeks. Ninan monitored the Marquis' progress. Through her network of spies, she heard how the Countess would laugh a little harder at his wittiness. Oh, but this is okay. Listen more closer to his stories. She heard that the Countess was suddenly asking questions about him. Her friends told her that at social affairs, the Countess would often look up at the Marquis, following his steps. Ninan felt certain that the young woman was falling under his spell. It was a matter of weeks now, maybe a month or two, but if all went smoothly, the citadel would fall. Because we plan to conquer. A few days later, the Marquis was at the Countess's home. They were alone. Suddenly, he was a different man, this time acting on his own impulse rather than following Ninan's instructions. He took the Countess's hands and told her he was in love with her. The young woman seemed confused, a reaction he did not expect. She became polite, then excused herself. For the rest of the evening, she avoided his eyes, was not there to say good night to men like La Roche. I saw him name. Molia and Rich. Seduction was a game to her, to be practiced with skill. As she got older and her reputation grew, the most important families in France would send their sons to her to be instructed in matters of love. Nina knew that men and women are very different, but when it comes to seduction, they feel the same. Deep down inside, they often sense when they are being seduced, but they give in because they enjoy the feeling of being led along. It is a pleasure to let go and to allow the other person to detour you into a strange country. Everything in seduction, however, depends on suggestion. You cannot announce your intentions or reveal them directly in words. Instead, you must throw your targets off the scent. To surrender to your guidance, they must be appropriately confused. You have to scramble your signals, appear interested in another man or woman, the decoy, then hint at being interested in the target, then feign indifference, on and on. Such patterns not only confuse but excite. Imagine this story from the Countess's perspective. After a few of the Marquis's moves, she sensed the Marquis was playing some sort of game. But the game, she delighted her. Whoa, a woman loves the game. She did not know where he was leading her, but so much the better. His moves intrigued her, each of them keeping her waiting for the next one. She even enjoyed her jealousy and confusion, for sometimes any emotion is better than the boredom of security. Really? Perhaps the Marquis had ulterior motives. Most men do. But she was willing to wait and see. And probably, if she had been made to wait long enough, what was he up to would not matter. The moment the Marquis uttered the fatal word love, however, all was changed. This was no longer a game with moves. It was artless show of passion. His intention was revealed. He was seducing her. This put everything he had done in a new light. All that before had been charming now seemed ugly and conniving. The countess felt embarrassed and used when I feel such a girl. A door closed that would never open again. All because what? You show your cards too early. Do not be held a cheat, even though it is impossible to live today without being one. Let your greatest cunning lie in covering up what looks like cunning. Wow. Okay. Okay. Observance of the law. In 1850, the young Otto von Bismarck, then a 35-year-old deputy in Prussian parliament, was at a turning point in his career. The issues of the day were the unification of the many states, including Prussia, into which Germany was then divided, and a war against Austria, the powerful neighbor to the south that hoped to keep the Germans weak and at odds, even threatening to intervene if they tried to unite. Threatening me because me and one guy were ready for fights. Prince William, next in line to be Prussia's king, was in favor of going to war, and was the parliament rallied to the cause, prepared to back any mobilization of troops. The only ones to oppose war were the present king, Frederick William IV, and his ministers who preferred to appease the powerful Austrians. Throughout his career, Bismarck had been a loyal, even passionate supporter of Prussians' might and power. He dreamed of German unification, of going to war against Austria and humiliating the country that for so long had kept Germany divided. A former soldier, he saw warfare as a glorious business. This, after all, was the man who years later would say, the great questions of the time will be decided not by speeches and resolutions, but by iron and blood. Passionate patriot and lover of military glory, Bismarck nevertheless gave a speech in Parliament at the height of the war fever that astonished all who heard it. Woe unto these statesmen, he said, who makes war without a reason that will still be valid when the war is over? After the war, you will all look differently at these questions. Will you then have the courage to turn to the peasant contemplating the ashes of his farm, to the man who has been crippled, to the father who has lost his children? Not only did Bismarck go on to talk of the madness of this war, but strangest of all, he praised Austria and defended her actions. This went against everything he stood for. The consequences were immediate. Bismarck was against the war. What could this possibly mean? Other deputies were confused, and several of them changed their votes. Eventually, the king and his ministers won out, and war was averted. A few weeks after Bismarck's infamous speech, the king, grateful, let's turn the page, that he had spoken for peace, made him a cabinet minister. A few years later, he became the Prussian premier. In this role, he eventually led his country and a peace-loving king into a war against Austria, crushing the former empire and establishing a mighty German state with Prussia at his head. All right, I saw you have attitude. I saw you do it. That is what they meant by, don't let them know your next move. Okay. Interpretation. At the time of his speech in 1850, Bismarck made several calculations. First, he sensed that the Prussian military, which had not kept pace with other European armies, was unready for war. That Austria, in fact, might very well win, a disastrous result for the future. Second, if the war were lost and Bismarck had supported it, his career would be gravely jeopardized. The king and his conservative ministers wanted peace. Bismarck wanted the power. The answer was to throw people off the scent by supporting a cause he detested, saying things he would laugh at if said by another. A whole country was fooled. It was because of Bismarck's speech that the king made him a minister, a position from which he quickly rose to be prime minister, attaining the power to strengthen the Prussian military and accomplish what he had wanted all along: the humiliation of Austria and the unification of Germany under Prussians' leadership. Bismarck was certainly one of the cleverest statesmen who ever lived, a master of strategy and deception. No one suspected what he was up to in this case. He had announced his real intentions arguing that it was better to wait now and fight later. He would not have won the argument since most Prussians wanted war at that moment and mistakenly believed that their army was superior to Austrians. Had he played up to the king, asked to be a minister in exchange for supporting peace, he would not have succeeded either. The king would have distrusted his ambition and doubted his sincerity. By being completely insincere and sending misleading signals, however, he deceived everyone, concealed his purpose, and attained everything he wanted. Such is the power of hiding your intentions. Keys to power. Most people are open books. They say what they feel, blurt out their opinions at every opportunity, and constantly reveal their plans and intentions. They do this for several reasons. First, it is easy and natural to always want to talk about one's feelings and plans for the future. It takes effort to control your tongue and monitor what you reveal. Second, many believe that by being honest and open, they are winning people's hearts and showing their true good nature. They are greatly deluded. Honestly, honesty is actually a blunt instrument which blood is more than it cuts. Your honesty is likely to offend people. It is much more prudent to tailor your words, telling people what they want to hear rather than the coarse and ugly truth of what that you feel or think. More importantly, by being unabashedly open, you make yourself so predictable and familiar that it is almost impossible to respect or fear you. The power will not accrue to a person who cannot inspire such emotions. Wait, what? I gotta inspire emotions. Oh, Lord. Okay. If you yearn for power, quickly lay honesty aside and train yourself in the art of concealing your intentions. Master the art and you will always have the upper hand. Basic to any ability to conceal one's intentions is a simple truth about human nature. Our first instinct is to always trust appearances. I really do that. I really do that in real life. I do that. Like, I give people the benefit of the doubt in real life off the rip. Like, I don't I my best friend be like, girl, and I'm like, yeah, what people, I face value people. I take people at face value. Mm-hmm. I just do. Excuse me, I had to drink some water. Okay. Master the art and you will always have the upper hand. Basic to an ability to conceal one's intentions is a simple truth about human nature. Our first instinct is to always trust appearances. We cannot go around doubting the reality of what we see and hear, constantly imagining that appearances conceal something else would exhaust and terrify us. This fact makes it relatively easy to conceal one's intention. Simply dangle an object you seem to desire, a goal you seem to aim for in front of people's eyes, and they will take the appearance for a reality. Once their eyes focus on the decoy, they will fail to notice what you are really up to. In seduction, set up conflicting signals, such as desire and indifference, and you not only throw them off the scent, you inflame their desire to possess you. Who said that? Okay, all right. A tactic that is often effective in setting up a red herring is to appear to support an idea or cause that is actually contrary to your own sentiments. Bismarck used this great effect in his speech in 1850. Most people will believe you have experienced a change of heart since it's so unusual to play so lightly with something as emotional as one's opinion and values. The same applies to any decoyed object of desire. Seem to want something in which you are actually not at all interested, and your enemies will be thrown off the scent, make all kinds of errors in their calculations. During the War of the Spanish Succession in 1711, the Duke Marlborough, head of the English army, wanted to destroy a key French fort because it protected a vital thoroughfare in France. Yet he knew that if he destroyed it, the French would realize what he wanted, to advance down that road. Instead, then he merely captured the fort and garrisoned it with some of his troops, making it appear as if he wanted it for some purpose of his own. The French attacked the fort and the Duke let them recapture it. Once they had it back, though, they destroyed it, figuring that the Duke had wanted it for some important reason. Now that the fort was gone, the road was unprotected, and Marlborough could easily march into France. That's crazy. Use this tactic in the following manner. Hide your intentions not by closing up with the risk of appearing secretive and making people suspicious, but by talking endlessly about your desires and goals, just not your real ones. You will kill three birds with one stone. You appear friendly, open, and trusting. You conceal your intentions, you send your rivals, and one-time consuming wild goose chases. Another powerful tool is throwing people off the scent is false sincerity. People easily mistake sincerity for honesty. Remember, their first instinct is to trust appearances. And since they value honesty and want to believe in the honesty of those around them, they will rarely doubt you or see through your act. Seeming to believe what you say gives you what? Back up. Seeming to believe what you say gives your words great weight. This is how Iago deceived and destroyed Othello. Given the depth of his emotions, the apparent sincerity of his concerns about Desdemona's supposed infidelity, how could Othello distrust him? This is also how the great con artist Yellow Kid Wheel pulled the wool over suckers' eyes, seeming to believe so deeply in the decoyed object he was dangling. It looked like what? In front of them. A phony stock, a toot racehorse. He made its reality hard to doubt. It is important, of course, not to go too far in this area. Sincerity is a tricky tool. Appear overpassionate and you raise suspicions. Be measured and believe, or your ruse will seem that put on that it is. To make your false sincerity an effective weapon in concealing your intentions, espouse a belief in honesty and forthrightness as important social values. Do this as publicly as possible. Emphasize your position on this subject, but by occasionally divulging some heartfelt thoughts, though only one that is actually meaningless or irrelevant, of course. Napoleon's minister, Talleyrand, was a master at taking people into his confidence by revealing some apparent secret. This feigned confidence, a decoy, would then enlist a real confidence on the other person's part. Remember, the best deceivers do everything they can to clothe their roguish qualities. They cultivate an air of honesty in one area to disguise their dishonesty in others. Honesty is merely another decoy tool in their arsenal of weapons. Again, reading this book, just reading this book really makes me question people sometimes. Because what? I get it. The 48 laws of power, I get it. I understand where they're coming from because, if you can deceive somebody in this way, then you can hold the power over them. And so they believe what you say and all those stuff. And I get it. I get where they're coming from. I get where they're going. But you ever read something and you feel like it's just doing too much? You understand the lessons that is being taught, but it's just doing too much for you. And so this is how I feel every time I read this book. I just feel I am getting the information that I need. But again, like the deception that comes with it and all the lies that they tell you to tell or to do, it just always throws me off because I understand the goal, but is it a goal that I want to have? You get what I'm saying? Like, is it that serious to have that as a goal? But yeah. Okay, let's continue. Part 2. Use smokescreen to disguise your action. Deception is always the best strategy, but the best deceptions require a screen of smoke to distract people attention to your real purpose. The bland exterior, like the unreadable poker face, is often the perfect smokescreen, hiding your intentions behind the comfortable and familiar. If you lead the sucker down a familiar path, he won't catch on when you lead him into a trap. See, that's what I be talking about. Come on, why you gotta be deceitful? Okay, observance of the law. In 1910, a Mr. Sam Giesel of Chicago sold his warehouse business for close to $1 million. Himself rich. He settled down to semi-retirement and the managing of his many properties. But deep inside, he itched for the old days of deal money. One day, a young man named Joseph Wheel visited his office, wanting to buy an apartment he had up for sale. Giesel explained the terms. The price was $8,000, but he only required a down payment of $2,000. Wheel said he would sleep on it, but he came back the following day and offered to pay the full $8,000 in cash. If Giesel could wait a couple days until a deal Wheel was working on came through. Even in semi-retirement, a clever businessman like Giesel was curious as to how Wheel would be able to come up with so much cash, roughly $150,000 today, so quickly. Wheel seemed reluctant to say and quickly changed the subject, but Giesel was persistent. Finally, after assurance of confidentiality, Wheel told Giesel the following story. Wheel's uncle was the secretary of a coterie of multimillionaire financiers. These wealthy gentlemen had purchased a hunting lodge in Michigan 10 years ago at a cheap price. They had not used the lodge for a few years, so they had decided to sell it and had asked Wheel's uncle to get whatever he could for it. For reasons, good reasons, of his own, the uncle had been nursing a grudge against the millionaires for years. This was his chance to get back at them. He would sell the property for $35,000 to a set-up man, whom it was Wheel's job to find. Whom it was Wheel's job to find. The financiers were too wealthy to worry about this low price. The set-up man would then turn around and sell the property again for its real price, around $155,000. The uncle, Wheel, and the third man would split the profits from this second sale. It was all legal and for a good cause. The uncle's just retribution. Giesel had heard enough. He wanted to be the setup buyer. Wheel was reluctant to involve him, but Giesel would not back down. The idea of a large profit plus a little adventure had him champing at the bit. Wheel explained that Giesel would have to put up the $35,000 in cash to bring the deal off. Giesel, a millionaire, said he could get the money with a snap of a finger. Snap! Wheel finally relented and agreed to arrange a meeting between the uncle, Giesel, and the financiers in the town of Galesburg, Illinois. On the train ride to Galesburg, Giesel met the uncle, an unimpressive man. An unimpressive man with whom he avidly discussed business. Wheel also brought along a companion, a somewhat pouchy man named George Gross. Wheel explained to Giesel that he himself was a boxing trainer, that Gross was one of the most promising prize fighters he trained, and that he had asked Gross to come along to make sure the fighter stayed in shape. For a promising fighter, Gross was unimpressive looking. He had gray hair and a bare belly, but Giesel was so excited about the deal that he didn't really think about the man's flabby appearance. First of all, if you're a prize fighter, you better have six-pack. Well, maybe not 6 5, maybe 4. But baby, you gotta be in shape a little bit. Come on now. All right? Once in Galesburg, Wheel and his uncle went to fetch the financiers while Giesel waited in a hotel room with Gross, who promptly put on his boxing trunks. As Giesel half-watched, Gross began to shadowbox. My shadowbox. Distracted as he was, Giesel ignored how badly the boxer wheezed after a few minutes of exercise. Although his style seemed real enough. An hour later, Wheel and his uncle appeared with the financiers. An impressive, intimidating group of men, all wearing fancy suits. The meeting went well, and the financiers agreed to sell the lodge to Giesel, who had already had the $35,000 wired to a local bank account. This sounds sketchy from the beginning. I'm not trust it. But you know what? Giesel, go ahead. This minor business now settled, the financiers sat back in their chairs and began to banter about high finance, throwing out the name J.P. Morgan as if they knew the man. Finally, one of them noticed the boxer in the corner of the room. We'll explain what he was doing there. The financier countered that he too had a boxer in his entourage whom he named. Will laughed brazenly and explained that his man could easily knock out their man. Conversation escalated into arguments. In the heat of passion, Will challenged the man to a bet. The financiers eagerly agreed and left to get their man ready for fight the next day. As soon as they left, the uncle yelled at Weasel right in front of Gizzle. They did not have enough money to bet with, and once the financiers discovered this, the uncle would be fired. Will apologized for getting him into this mess, but he had a plan. He knew the other boxer well, and with a little bribe, they could fix the fight. But where would the money come from for the bet? The uncle replied. Without it, they were as good as dead. Finally, Giza had had enough. Unwilling to jeopardize his deal with any ill will, he offered his own 3,500 cash for part of the bet. Even if he lost that, he would wire for more money and still make a profit on the sale of the lodge. The uncle and nephew thanked him. With their own sale of the lodge, with their own 15,000 and Giza's 35,000, they would manage to have enough for the bet. That evening, as Giza watched the two boxers rehearse the fix in the hotel room, his mind reeled at the killing he was going to make from both the boxing match and the sale of the lodge. You sound like that look a bit, and them sound like them are eyes something from you, and you are boo-boo the fool, because you alone I believe it. Me not believe it, but let's continue the story. The fight took place in a gym the next day. Yep, that's what they say. Will handed the cash, which was placed for security in a locked box. Everything was proceeding as planned in the hotel room. The financiers were looking glum at how badly their fighter was doing, and Jesus was dreaming about the money, about the easy money he was about to make. Then suddenly, a wild swing by the financial fighter, hit Gross hard in the face, knocking him down. What? When he hit the canvas, blood spurted from his mouth. He coughed, then laid still. You see, and that me I tell you, a boo-boo the fool at him because look, one of the financiers, a former doctor, checked the pulse. He was dead. See? No, because a thief rob him. The millionaires panicked. Everyone had to get out before the police arrived. They could all be charged with murder. Terrified, Giza hightailed it out of the gym and back to Chicago, leaving behind his 35,000, which he was only too glad to forget, for it seemed a small price to pay to avoid being implicated in a crime. He never wanted to see Will or any of the others again. After Giza scurried out, Gross stood up under his own steam. Under his own steam. The blood that had spurted from his mouth came from a bowl filled with chicken blood and hot water that he had hidden in his cheek. The whole affair had been masterminded by Will, better known as the Yellow Kid, one of the most creative con artists in history. Will split 35,000 with financiers and the boxer, all fellow con artists. A nice little profit for a few days' work. Look, evil man taking money. And see, a little deception. That book here, the stories are coming out. Entertaining, but damn. Interpretation. The Yellow Kid had staked out Giza as a perfect sucker. I don't know why I keep saying sucker like that. The perfect sucker long before he set up the con. He knew the boxing match scam would be the perfect ruse to separate Giza from his money quickly and definitively. But he also knew that if he had begun by trying to interest Giza in the boxing match, he would have failed miserably. He had to conceal his intentions and switch attention, create a smokescreen. In this case, the sale of the lodge. On the train ride and in the hotel, Giza's mind had been completely occupied with the pending deal. The easy money, the chance to hobnob with wealthy men. He had failed to notice that Gross was out of shape and middle-aged at his best. The man the old, him have beer belly, not a normal boxer. So, you can think that him would have win in one fight is unknown to me, but let's continue. Such is the distracting power of a smokescreen. Engrossed in the business deal, Giza's attention was easily diverted to the boxing match, but only at a point when it was already too late for him to notice the details that would have given Gross away. The match, after all, now depended on a bribe rather than on the other boxer's physical condition. And Giza was so distracted at the end of what? And Giesel was so distracted at the end by the illusion of the boxer's death that he completely forgot about his money. Learn from the yellow kid. The familiar, inconspicuous front is the perfect smokescreen. Approach your mark with an idea that seems ordinary enough. A business deal, financial intrigue. The sucker's mind is distracted, his suspicious allied. That is when you gently guide him onto the second path, the slippery slope down which he slides helplessly into your trap. That's crazy. Observance of the law. In the mid-1920s, the powerful warlords of Ethiopia were coming to the realization that a young man of the nobility named Haile Selassie, also known as Rastafari, was outcompeting them all and nearing the point where he could proclaim himself their leader, unifying the country for the first time in decades. Most of his rivals could not understand how this wispy, quiet, mild-mannered man had been able to take control. Not the Rastafari. Yet, in 1927, Selassie was able to summon the warlords, one at a time, to come to Addis Ababa to declare their loyalty and recognize him as leader. Some hurried, some hesitated, but only one, the Jazmash Balcha of Sidamo, there defied Selassie totally. Don't hate me for the name. A blustery man, Balcha was a great warrior, and he considered the new leader weak and unworthy. He pointedly stayed away from the capital. Finally, Selassie, in his gentle but stern way, commanded Balcha to come. The warlord decided to obey, but in doing so, he would turn the tables on this pretender to the Ethiopian throne. He would come to Addis Ababa at his own speed. And with an army of 10,000 men, a force large enough to defend himself, perhaps even start a civil war. Stationing this formidable force in a valley 3 miles from the capital, he waited as a king would. Selassie would have to come. Selassie did indeed send emissaries asking Balcha to attend an afternoon banquet in his honor. But Balcha, no fool, knew history. He knew that previous kings and lords of Ethiopia had used banquets as a trap. Once he was there and full of drink, Selassie would have him arrested or murdered. To signal his understanding of the situation, he agreed to come to the banquet, but only if he could bring his personal bodyguard, 600 of his best soldiers, all armed and ready to defend him and themselves. To Balcha's surprise, Selassie answered with the utmost politeness that he would be honored to play host to such warriors. The deceit! The deceit! On the way to the banquet, Balcha warned his soldiers not to get drunk and to be on their guard. When they arrived at the palace, Selassie was his charming best. He deferred to Balcha, treating him as if he desperately needed his approval and cooperation. But Balcha refused to be charmed, and he warned Selassie that if he did not return to his camp by nightfall, his army had orders to attack the capital. Selassie reacted as if hurt by his mistrust, mother hurt too. Over the meal, when it came time for the traditional singing of songs in honor of Ethiopia's leaders, he made a point of allowing only songs on the warlord of Sidamon. It seems to Balcha that Selassie was scared, intimidated by this great warrior who could not be outwitted. Sensing the change, Balcha believed that he would be the one to call the shots in the days to come. The little lie when him tell himself, you see. At the end of the afternoon, Balcha and his soldiers began their march back to camp amidst cheers and gun salutes. Bullet, bullet. Looking back to the capital over his shoulder, he planned the strategy. His own soldiers would march through the capital in triumph within weeks, and Selassie will be put in his place being either prison or death. When Balcha came in sight of his camp, however, he saw that something was terribly wrong. Where before there had been colorful tents stretched as far as eyes could see, now there was nothing, only smoke from doused fire. What devil's magic was this? A witness told Balcha what had happened. During the banquet, a large army commanded by an ally of Selassie's had stolen up on Balcha's encampment by a side route he had not seen. This army had not come to fight, however. Knowing Balcha would have heard a noisy battle and hurried back with his 600-man bodyguard. Selassie had armed his own troops with baskets of gold and cash. They had surrounded Balcha's army and proceeded to purchase every last one of their weapons. Those who refused were easily intimidated. Within a few hours, Balcha's entire force had been disarmed and scattered in all directions. Realizing his danger, Balcha decided to march south with his 600 soldiers to regroup. But the same army that had disarmed his soldier blocked his way. The other way out was to march to the capital, but Selassie had set a large army to defend it. Like a chess player, he had predicted Balcha's move and had checkmated him. So you deal with the boy. For the first time in his life, Balcha surrendered. To repent his sins of pride and ambition, he agreed to enter a monastery. Throughout Selassie's long reign, no one could quite figure him out. Ethiopians liked their leaders, but Selassie, who wore the front of a gentle, peace-loving man, lasted longer than any of them. Never angry or impatient, he lured his victims with sweet smiles, lulling them with charm and obsequiousness? Alright, I don't know this. Wait, hold up. Obsequiousness. We just gonna go with that. Before he attacked. In the case of Balcha, Selassie played on the man's wariness, his suspicion that the banquet was a trap, which in fact it was, but not the one he had expected. Selassie's way of allaying Balcha's fear, letting him bring his bodyguard to the banquet, giving him top billing there, making him feel in control, created a thick smoke screen, concealing the real actions 3 miles down the road, aka 3 miles away. Remember, the paranoid and wary are often the easiest to deceive. Win their trust in one area, and you can have a smoke screen that blinds their view in another, letting you creep up and level them with a devastating blow. A helpful and apparently honest gesture, or one that implies the other person's superiority, these are perfect diversionary devices. Properly set up, the smokescreen is a weapon of great power. It enabled the gentle Selassie to totally destroy his enemy without firing a single bullet. Do not underestimate the power of Tafari. He creeps like a mouse, but he has a jaws like a lion. Keys to power. If you believe that deceivers are colorful folks who mislead with elaborate lies and tall tales, you are greatly mistaken. The best deceivers utilize a bland and inconspicuous front that calls no attention to themselves. They know that extravagant words and gestures immediately raise suspicion. Instead, they envelope their mark in the familiar, the banal, the harmless. In Yellow Kid's Wheels deal with Sam Giesel, the familiar was a business deal. In the Ethiopian case, it was Selassie's misleading obsequiousness, exactly what Balcha would have expected from a weaker warlord. Warlord in the building! Oh my, the Jamaican in me, y'all. Jamaican in me. Sorry, okay. Once you have lulled your sucker's attention with the... I can't say it without sucker. Once you have lulled your sucker's attention with the familiar, they will not notice the deception being perpetrated behind their backs. This derives from a single truth. People can only focus on one thing at a time. It is really too difficult for them to imagine that the bland and harmless person they are dealing with is simultaneously setting up something else. The grayer and more uniform the smoke in your smoke screen, the better it conceals your intentions. In the decoy and red herring devices discussed in part 1, you actively distract people in the smoke screen. You lull your victims, drawing them into your web. Because it is so hypnotic, this is often the best way to conceal your intentions. The simplest form of smoke screen is facial expression. Behind a bland, unreadable exterior, All sorts of mayhem can be planned without detection. All right, maybe I need help. Maybe I need to follow this book because one thing about me, two things for sure, I don't know how to keep my face from not telling what's going on because it do. It's a book that can be read from front to back, cover to cover, page to page, not missing nothing. Some of y'all is better than me, but me, my face be telling the truth. Mm. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you. Yeah. That's how my face be. So maybe I need to take a page out of this book, or I need to listen to this specific law to like, hey, girl, maybe you need to learn how to, poker face. So shout out to this chapter. Thank you for the lesson. Something to be learned. So yeah. Where was I? Okay, here we go. So, the simplest form of smokescreen is facial expression. Behind a bland, unreadable exterior, all sorts of mayhem can be planned without detection. This is a weapon that the most powerful men in history have learned to perfect. It was said that no one could read Franklin D. Roosevelt's face. Baron James Rothschild made a lifelong practice of disguising his real thoughts behind bland smiles and nondescriptive looks. Stendhal wrote of Talleyrand, never was a face less of a barometer. Henry Kissinger would bore his opponents around the negotiating table to tears with his monotonous voice, his blank look, his endless recitations of details. Then as their eyes glazed over, he would suddenly hit them with a list of bold terms. Caught off guard, they would be easily intimidated. As one poker manual explains it, while playing his hand, back up. As one poker manual explains it, while playing his hand, the good player is seldom an actor. Instead, he practices a bland behavior that minimizes readable patterns, frustrates and confuses opponents, permits great concentration. An adaptive concept, the smokescreen can be practiced on a number of levels, all playing on the psychological principles of distraction and misdirection. One of the most effective smokescreen is the noble gesture. People want to believe apparent noble gestures are genuine, for the belief is pleasant. They rarely notice how deceptive these gestures can be. The art dealer Joseph Devine was once confronted with a terrible problem. The millionaires who had paid so dearly for Devine's painting were running out of wall space, and with inheritance taxes getting even higher, it seemed unlikely that they would keep buying. The solution was the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., which Devine helped create in 1937 by getting Andrew Mellon to donate his collection to it. The National Gallery was the perfect front for Devine. In one gesture, his clients avoided taxes, cleared wall space for new purchases, and reduced the number of paintings on the market, maintaining the upward pressure of their prices. All this while the donors created the appearance of being public benefactors. Another effective smokescreen is the pattern, the establishment of a series of actions that seduce the victim into believing you will continue in the same way. The pattern plays on the psychology of anticipation. Our behavior conforms to patterns, or so we like to think. In 1878, the American robber Baron J. Good created a company that began to threaten the monopoly of the telegraph company Western Union. Western Union has been around for forever? Dang, I didn't know that. Okay, all right, back up. The directors of Western Union decided to buy Gold's company up. They had to spend a hefty sum, but they figured they had managed to rid themselves of an irritating competitor. A few months later, though, Gold was at again complaining he had been treated unfairly. He started up a second company to compete with Western Union and its new acquisition. The same thing happened again. Western Union bought him out to shut him up. Soon the pattern began for the third time, but now Gould went for the jugular. He suddenly staged a bloody takeover struggle and managed to gain complete control of Western Union. He had established a pattern that had tricked the company's director into thinking his goal was to be bought out at some handsome price. Once they paid him off, they relaxed and failed to notice that he was actually playing for higher stakes. The pattern is powerful in that it deceives the other person into expecting the opposite of what you are really doing. Another psychological weakness of which to construct a smokescreen is the tendency to mistake appearances for reality. The feeling that if someone seems to belong to your group, their belongings must be real. This habit makes the seamless blend a very effective front. The trick is simple. You simply blend in with those around you. The better you blend, the less suspicious you become. During the Cold War of the 1950s and 60s, as is now notorious, a slew of British civil servants passed secrets to the Soviets. They went undetected for years because they were apparently decent chaps, had gone to all the right schools, and fit the old boy network perfectly. Blending in is the perfect smokescreen for spying. The better you do it, the better you can conceal your intentions. Remember, it takes patience and humility to dull your brilliant colors, to put on the mask of inconspicuous. Do not despair at having to wear such a bland mask. It is often your unreadability that draws people to you and make you appear a person of power. Go ahead, child. Go ahead. Water is beautiful. Authority. Have you ever heard of a skillful general who intends to surprise a citadel, announce his plan to the enemy? Conceal your purpose and hide your progress. Do not disclose the intent of your designs until they cannot be opposed, until the combat is over. Win the victory before you declare the war. In a word, imitate those warlike people whose designs are not known except by the ravaged country through which they have passed. The reversal, okay, a reversal. No smokescreen, red herring, false sincerity, or any other diversionary device will succeed in concealing your intentions if you already have an established reputation for deception. And as you get older and achieve success, it often becomes increasingly difficult to disguise your cunning. Everyone knows you practice deception, persist in playing naive, and you run the risk of seeming the rankest hypocrite. Wow. Which will severely limit your room to maneuver. In such cases, it is better to own up to appear the honest rogue, or better, the repentant rogue. Not only will you be admired for your frankness, but most wonderful and strange of all, you'll be able to continue your stratagems. What? Stratagems. As P.T. Barnum, the 19th century king of Alright, okay, these names, come on. As P.T. Barnum, the 19th century king of Hamburgery, grew older, he learned to embrace his reputation as a grand deceiver. At one point, he organized a buffalo hunt in New Jersey, complete with Indians and a few imported buffaloes. He publicized the hunt as genuine, but it became off as so completely fake that the crowd, instead of getting angry and asking for their money back, was genuinely amused. They knew Barnum pulled tricks all the time. That was the secret of his success, and they loved him for it. Learning a lesson from this affair, Barnum stopped concealing all of his devices, even revealing his deceptions in a telltale autobiography. As Kay wrote, "The world wants to be deceived." Wow, do they really? Finally, although it is wiser to divert attention from your purposes by presenting a bland, familiar exterior, there are times when the colorful, conspicuous gesture is the right diversionary tactic. The great charlatan mountebanks of 17th and 18th century Europe used humor and entertainment to deceive their audiences. Dazzled by a great show, the public would not notice the charlatan's real intentions. Thus, the star charlatan instead. Alright, what is going on, girl? Read correctly. Thus, the star charlatan himself would appear in town in a night black coach drawn by black horses. Clowns, Tightrope walkers and star entertainers would accompany him, pulling people into his demonstrations of elixirs and quack potions. The charlatan made entertainment seem like the business of the day. The business of the day was actually the sale of the elixirs and quack potions. Spectacle and entertainment clearly are excellent devices to conceal your intentions, but they cannot be used indefinitely. The public grows tired and suspicious and eventually catches on to the trick. And indeed, the charlatans had to move quickly from town to town. Before, word spread that the potions were useless and the entertainment was a trick. Powerful people with bland expressions, on the other hand, the Talleyrans, the Rothschilds, and Selassies, can practice their deceptions in the same place throughout their lifetimes. Their act never wears thin and rarely causes suspicion. The colorful smokescreen should be used cautiously, then and only when the occasion is right. Y'all, that was just chapter 3. This book though, it's giving me an emotional roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie. It's low-key giving me an emotional roller coaster. But I can say this chapter 3 of Never Showing Your Real Intentions really gave me something to think about. Because like I said, I have a problem with like keeping my stone face stoned, or like, you know, my face be telling the truth, y'all. If you meet me in real life, I will be I will tell all the secrets by just looking at my face. And so this definitely gave me something to think about, as in, hey, sometimes it's easier to catch bees with honey. You know what I'm saying? And if you practice that, then hopefully your intentions can be good. Because majority of the time, y'all, my intentions are good. My face just be upset that I just be upset for whatever stupidity might come with it. But I honestly have good intentions. Now I have to figure out how to, get it done and have the right intention, but no one, I guess the book is revealing that people want to be deceived, and I don't like being deceived, but I can see their point, and I don't want to do that. But it's like a sleight of hand. I don't want you to see that I'm trying to make you, but I'll be telling people, oh, this book, man, it's coming through. Something to think about, and I'm thinking about it, y'all. I'm just thinking about it out loud right now. But that was chapter 3 of the 48 Laws of Power, y'all. Thank you guys so much for coming here and watching this. I thoroughly enjoy reading for you guys. I almost didn't make it here. I cooked spaghetti for lunch and dinner, and I was like, oh, do I have to go to Sunday reading? I was like, yes, girl, you do. You got to. And so I almost didn't make it, but I made it, y'all. So that is chapter 3. We're only going to be here for an hour. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys come back next week to read chapter 4 and see whatever other chapters we get. But we're just 3 chapters in, and I am just a lot to think about. Sometimes confused, sometimes intrigued, but sometimes given perspective. And so yeah, so anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Aneke. I will see you guys tomorrow for a budget closeout. My calculator just fell, but I will see you guys tomorrow for a budget closeout, and then next week for all the things, for all the other videos on Wednesday, Friday, and another Sunday reads next Sunday. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Aneke. I hope you ate well today. It is Sunday. I hope you cooked a great meal, child. I hope you went financially, physically, mentally, and ate all the way down, okay? And happy budgeting. Someone said that, and I just smiled when they said it in the comments. But happy budgeting, guys. I hope your budgets are going really well. And even though we are improving our budget and we're doing things financially, we're also improving our minds. And so that is why we're reading on Sunday Reads. And we're not just reading financial books, but we're also reading self-improvement books as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Aneke, and I will see y'all tomorrow in the next one, or I'll see y'all in the next video whenever you watch it. Okay, all right, bye. I'm out, y'all.